Today's meditation will begin with my reading a couple of paragraphs from my book, Ending the Search. And it is called The Ridgepole. During the Buddha's search for an end to suffering, he tried many different methods of reaching his heart's longing. He studied with the most revered meditation teachers of the day. He mastered each level of meditation being taught, but still he did not reach an end to his search. He tried becoming a total renunciate, an ascetic, eating only 1 grain of rice a day, according to legend. His body became emaciated. He was near starvation. Still, the search did not end. Finally, he sat down under the Bodhi tree and vowed not to get up until he had attained full enlightenment. Mara and his forces, the ego's inner voices of limitation, delusion, and fear, came to visit. Appearing as angry demons, tempting him with dancing girls, appealing to lust. Still, he was not moved. The awake silence that was and is the Buddha's true nature saw through every guise, every identification. It delivered knowledge of the Buddha's countless lives, the understanding of karma and the cycle of causality. The Buddha saw that there was no independent self in anything, but rather that everything was dependent on every other thing. Shortly after his enlightenment revealed itself, the Buddha uttered these words: "House builder, you have now been seen. You shall not build the house again. Your rafters have been broken down. Your ridgepole is demolished too. My mind has now attained the unformed nirvana and reached the end of every kind of craving." So for this meditation, I want us to investigate our own ridgepole. The image of the ridgepole, it's really what holds up the illusion of our separate self. So if for a moment you can imagine a ridgepole that's holding up a tent or a house, right? Something right in the center of things that's holding up the whole structure. And imagine the structure is yourself, your own mind. And there in the center of your idea of yourself is a ridgepole holding it all up. What is it made of? What keeps your idea of a separate me standing? What do you experience on a daily basis that holds up your identity? So I want to invite you to just stop for a moment, inquire, stay open, and see what wants to be revealed as you contemplate your own ridgepole. What's holding up this entire idea of a separate self? Something or many things, obviously conditioned, holds it up in your experience. What can you see more clearly about what is holding up this structure called a separate me, a separate self. Not an individual expression, which of course each of us is, but separate. Separate from life, separate from one another, even separate from ourselves in so many cases. A ridgepole in the center of this structure of mind. What's it made of? Things you've been told, judgments you've made. Look for yourself. What is holding up the whole tent? In a sense, we're asking the mind to inquire into its beliefs, its conditioned view. But what actually can see clearly is beyond the mind's thoughts. What can see clearly the ridgepole and what it's made of is beyond a thought. It's the true seeing that you are, that is within you. So, after you have even seen a bit of the truth of your ridgepole, imagine it comes down. You imagine you are the tent or the structure of your own mind, and the ridgepole of what has been holding up your idea of a separate self is taken down, demolished. What is the experience now? What remains without the ridgepole? To reiterate the Buddha's words, house builder, you have now been seen. You shall not build the house again. Your rafters have been broken down. Your ridgepole is demolished too. What's here? What remains without the ridgepole? What is still here when everything you have thought or felt about yourself is at least temporarily removed? This invitation is not to get rid of conditioning, not to get rid of even ideas, beliefs, or thoughts, but to actually see clearly what they're made of, so that they become more and more and more transparent, and we no longer take our identification from them. So we're asking for a bit of clarity here, to begin to see through the illusion of a separate self. And even if you have many times glimpsed the truth of this, as you know, this idea of being separate returns again and again. The ridgepole is put back up, And we're now operating once again from an idea of a separate self, not from the reality of one. So as has been the case in other meditations, other invitations, when all the ways that we have identified a me are let go of or seen clearly, what remains? You see, what remains is not even trying to get rid of what's here. It just sees it clearly for what it is and not who we are. So what is your ridgepole? And if you imagine or experience it coming down, what's left? What remains? And perhaps you can spend a few moments investigating whatever this is that remains, that may feel like it's empty, but it's empty of a separate self. It may feel like it's nothing, but it's the no thing that contains everything. Feel into this, sense into this, not as some idea that you're going to carry forth, but the actual experience of seeing more clearly what's holding up the whole show of a me. It's not even wrong. It just doesn't happen to be the truth of who we are. So what is the space that's still here with or without a ridgepole? What have we been building a self out of? What is it made of? Can we look more closely? Can we get interested? Not in the how do I get rid of it, how do I take it down, but what is it really? Because the clear seeing is the beginning of transformation. And so I would just leave you to contemplate, to investigate, to inquire on your own, and to discover what the ridgepole may be made of, and what's here, if even for a moment it's removed. Are you still here? Is something still very present? Who is that? What is that? That's an interesting question.